Big Brown Inland by Helen Harvey of Warragee, 2540. Narrated by Janine Penfold. Once, dreams came, dark and draining. I woke in a cold sweat with a dread I could not shake until first light. The pungent taste of dust still lay on my tongue. The grit still coated my skin, and a hollow dread gnawed at my gut. These feelings were worsened by isolation and the repetitious slog of trying to hold on to stock and livelihood. It felt as though we were the only ones on the planet, until I reminded myself that there were thousands more in the same situation. It began with the usual dig in reaction needed to get through another dry spell, but this time, that dry turned into a full-blown drought, and before we knew it, we were in one of the longest and worst droughts on record. It became a full-time occupation for my husband and son, with daily feeding of cattle, and worse, daily destroying and burying of weakened stock. Their swift end spared them the agony of being eaten alive by foxes or crows. It was a terrible thing, and the very worst of times. We had spent, and were spending, thousands of dollars trying to keep them alive, for who knows how long. I pushed aside the fear it may become something they could no longer bear, but clung to my unswerving belief they were strong and resilient enough to get through it. It was too hot to run the work dogs on the quad bike. 3 times a day, I flooded around their kennels for relief from the debilitating heat. I packed Vaseline on their ears to deter biting flies, which left them bleeding or swollen with ear hematomas, which eventually had to be lanced or drained of blood. My days were filled by checking troughs and stock, watering withered trees and lawn, and moving extension hoses to the closest paddock trees with hope of keeping them alive until rain came. Natives don't fare well on long-term watering with artesian water, which was our saviour and lifeblood of the inland. Would the rain ever come? That dreadful mentality was creeping in, and we found it harder to remain optimistic with only blue skies forecast. The magpies and 3 youngsters were struggling, so I started feeding them mincemeat or soaked dog biscuits. Pretty soon, peewees and butcher birds were lining up too, and if I hadn't fed them, they would have perished. The earth was as hard as cement and devoid of cover and life. Mobs of galahs, sulphur-crested cockatoos, and toppy pigeons survived on the spilt grain around the augers, and water was always plentiful in troughs. The dams were turning to silt and threatening to bog cattle. Yet another worry. However, on the worst days, little miracles arrived from nowhere to boost my spirits. The day 4 majestic brolgas danced against a backdrop of red on the tip heads of our dam was a rare and beautiful thing. The dead landscape melted away as I watched them, wings outstretched, performing elegant airs above the ground movements, as if they were graceful ballet dancers. Dust squalls continued daily, and full-blown dust storms arrived every few weeks. Day turned to night on a few occasions, and the howling shrieks inside the roof made me fear the whole roof was going too. During the worst of them, I retreated to the windowless hallway, which I thought would be the safest, and leant against its walls. The tremors in the bricks vibrated through my body, and for the first time I felt really afraid. The next day, when riding through the scrub, I was blessed to see a family of echidnas walking single file, with 2 adults in the lead, and 3 small babies shuffling along behind. It was one of the most beautiful things I had ever seen, and helped me endure those horrific storms, one of which collapsed our machinery shed roof and ripped tree trunks apart in a corkscrew-like action. The dry storms kept arriving, but the rain did not. Half a lifetime seemed to have passed until the rains finally came, and continued to fall until there was hardly a dry spot to be found. Paddocks were transformed to inland lakes, and the cattle camped on our road to get out of the water. Black swans were another miracle which came from nowhere. They swam and fed on the myriads of tadpoles, along with a bevy of other water birds, and I rescued 2 exquisite native mice from the water and wading ibis. These days, life passes evenly and much kinder. I live far from the inland, just a stone's throw from the coast, with ample time to write bush poetry, work on gardens, visit surrounding areas, make new friends, and see more of half of my family and 4 great-grandchildren. The weather is mostly mild and easy, the countryside nearly always green. Specialists and hospital facilities are close at hand, instead of a day's drive away. Just down the road, as they say, but they really are just down the road. I miss seeing my son, my friends, an old hometown, and the contrasting seasons of the inland. Sometimes I yearn for the wide smiles, familiar faces, g'days, an open friendliness, laughter that came so easily, sun-tanned arms and legs with sock savers to keep grain and burrs out of boots. I miss the "if there's anything I can do" calls, especially after my husband died. Need a hand? Before you knew it, the bonnet was hoisted or vehicle jacked up, with a flat tyre being speedily replaced. Big grins. No worries. Sometimes old dreams come, probably as a reminder of those hard days, but they arrive, non-threatening and without baggage or dread. I am forever grateful to that big, brown, flat inland of endless skies and distance. It gave much more than it ever took, as it nurtured, tempered, tested, and moulded me into who I am today. The end.